Everybody, it is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022, and this is the SWAN Circulation User Group meeting. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to attend today. I am Peggy Tomzik. I'm from Eisenhower Public Library District, and I know we have several of the SWAN staff joining us today. So I don't know if any of the SWAN staff want to chime in and say hello.
Sure, I'll start. Hi, everyone. I'm Crystal Vella. I'm here more as a moral support, but I will pass it along to, let's see, who's first here on my list? Helen. Helen, do you want to say hello?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I am the resource sharing consultant here for SWAN, and I can pass to Tara.
Hi, this is Tara. I'm the UX manager here at SWAN.
Who's up next? Let's say Vicky.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vicky Totten here at SWAN. Oh, I'm the IT and system support consultant here at SWAN. That's the part I meant to say.
And I think we have Michael. I don't know if he can unmute or not. Oh, I think Michael and, oh, hi, Michael.
Hello, I'm sorry, I was muted. Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael Zarmek. I'm one of the system administrators here at SWAN.
Cool, thanks. And I think Sam's here.
Hi, everybody. I'm here. I'm a bibliographic services consultant, and good morning.
Okay, if I've skipped any SWAN people, so sorry. But yeah, okay, go ahead, Peggy.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here, and we'll jump right into the agenda today. Our first topic is the daily SMS report. I have certainly observed this arriving in my inbox. So I know Vicky is here to shed some light on this report and tell us what it's all about.
Thanks, Peggy. I just put a link to the documentation on the support site regarding this. So I can, would you like me to share my screen, or do you want to just go to the link and share from yours?
Why don't you go ahead and share from your screen?
Okay, then I will do that. Okay, and everybody sees my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we worked with Cersei Dynex and told them that we wanted to be able to have each of our libraries get their own SMS notice bounces or errors reports, the way that you do with our email bounces. Now that tool was put together by Rudy here at SWAN, but we don't handle the SMS notices, the actual tool that sends them the way that we do email. So we had to work with Cersei Dynex for this one. And in working with them, they agreed that they could do that for us, and then just did it. Surprise! You guys got an early Christmas in July present when you started getting those reports. So what they're doing is they should be listing all of your patrons that received an SMS notice yesterday. So unlike the email bounces where you're getting an email for each of the messages that bounced, you're getting a list of all of the SMS notices that went out the previous day. So that report is going to have 4 tabs on it, and you will see, I'm not going to share that report because it actually has patron information in it. So we'll just discuss it here. It has the barcode, and it has the phone number that the notice was sent to. It also lets you know which type of notice was sent. So what we have here is just looking at, you should process the report by looking at that 4th tab that's on the report itself. So what you're going to be looking for then is any type of error. So you'll see that there's a bunch of different errors, and you may not necessarily see all of these on your report each day because not everyone is going to have all of these errors. So the first one that we see is that the destination number you're trying to reach is unknown and may no longer exist. So maybe they got a new phone, or that's not assigned to anyone anymore, and the patron needs to give you a new number. Then there's the destination number you are trying to reach is blocked from receiving this message, e.g. due to blacklisting. We don't want our patrons to report us as spam or anything. We're not spam. They've actually opted in to receive these notices. So this one's really an important one for you to reach out to your patrons and just let them know, hey, you need to unblock our number. That's the number that the SMS notices come from. And then we have the destination number is unable to receive this message, most likely because it's a landline. That one's pretty self-explanatory, right? I do like that they put the kind of reason why these errors did occur. So this one, we can't send text messages to your landline. I'm sorry. And then we have our error phone number. This one is really interesting. Oh, I skipped one. The destination handset you're trying to reach is switched off or otherwise unavailable. So the solution to that is the patron really needs to have their phone on to receive our messages. And then error phone number. This one to me is the most interesting because unlike the phone number field in workflows in the address tab, this one we are not able to set up so that they have to have it formatted correctly. And as you all know, this one does not accept hyphens either or dashes either between the numbers. So it will only accept those numbers. And in some cases, you'll see that patrons have missed a character, missed a number, or maybe even put in one too many. So when it tries to call that number, it's unable to get through. So this is what we have. The documentation is a growing article here, and as we see more with the reports, we can add more to this. So I'm just wondering if anyone has gone through this and already reached out to your patrons about it. Great, Jane, you have. That's good to hear. So I am happy that the report is kind of is really specific about why things errored. And Sherry's asking, is the queued message considered an error message? And do you have more information? Okay, the queued message is not considered an error. And that is because it just means that the carrier did not get back to the tool that is actually sending the notices. So it's just that they didn't get that confirmation back from the carrier. And we have been let to know that it just typically means that it was queued. They didn't get that information back, but it did go through because they didn't get any error from it. And Sherry, you have been contacting your patrons as well. Great, that is fantastic. You guys are already doing what the report was created for you to do. So at the bottom here, we are giving our recommendation to for what to do with these. If you're not able to get in touch with those patrons immediately so that you can update it, it's really important that you get that updated because we don't want additional notices continuing to go out and the patron just is not getting them. So if you're not able to get them through to them immediately, then we want you to go ahead and remove the information from the SMS tab. We think that this is the best way to ensure that the patron's going to get their next notice, especially if they have an email address in their record, they will get it that way. So then we, once you do that, we also would suggest that you enter a note explaining why it was removed. So if you kind of follow the same procedure that you do for email bounces, where you take that email address and you drop it into a note before you remove the email address field. And then you can just mark after that it had an error on what dates or any type of information you'd like there, just that their SMS notice errored and they need to re-enter their information. So opt back in to having the SMS notices. And a great way for them to do that is just to have them opt in again using the text message settings section of the My Accounts on Aspen. So again, we're sorry it was a surprise. It was a surprise to us as well. A happy surprise, but a surprise nonetheless. And I'm just glad that the CERC users group was meeting so soon after we started getting it.
Thank you, Vicki. Any other questions about that? No? Okay. This is one more helpful tool we have for making sure all our important information is getting to our patrons. So thank you. Okay, anything else you want to add, Vicki?
No, I think that's about it. So you're more, I do have one other thing because, it's always the thing. If you do have any questions about it, help@swanlibraries.net. Yeah, and that'll open a ticket and we can help you with it. And you can also save these reports to refer back to when your patron is saying that they did not receive their text messages. And that's all I have today.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, all right, I think next up is Tara, and I think she has some information about placing holds in Aspen.
Hi everyone, I do. So now that we're live on Aspen, we've been kind of seeing some more questions about holds. I think there's maybe an extent to which just the move and a new catalog has sort of shined a light on some of the oddities of Symphony that maybe we've forgotten over time. So yeah, I thought I'd just kind of quickly review kind of the grouped work, holds logic in Aspen, and then look at how that looks in Symphony and some things that might be a little different than what you're used to seeing. So I'm going to share my screen here, which hopefully you can see my screen. We do have a page on the support site. I'm going to pop this link into the chat here for everyone in case you want to save it for future reference. And it covers how holds in Aspen work, and the sort of, I think the best thing to look at is this handy dandy decision tree. So you can see when patrons are placing a hold at the group level, which you might, if you're wondering like what the heck is a group level, I always like to look at Pride and Prejudice because I think it's a good example because it has a whole bunch of records in there. So just as a refresher, when you search for for any title under the formats, it's going to group a bunch of different records together. So this whole thing is a grouped work, this whole record for Pride and Prejudice here, this results. But each of those grouped works has these individual editions. So these are actually going to correspond with your records that you see in workflows. And you can place a hold on these individual records, but most of the time, you and your patrons are going to want to place a hold here. They're not going to expand this probably, and you'll just hit that place hold button. And Aspen will use this logic to select the best record for that hold. So first we'll look at, is this holdable by the patron? Obviously, you know, it's not going to let you place a hold if it's not holdable for you. And then it's going to look if it's fiction or nonfiction. If it's nonfiction, it tries to get you the most recent edition, but if that's not available, it'll prompt you for an older edition. And then if it's fiction, it will kind of go through this logic. Is it available at the library whose catalog you're on? So in this case, it would be Downers Grove because I'm on their catalog. And then it will look down, is it available at another library? So on shelf that could get to you pretty quickly. If it's checked out, it'll prioritize your local holdings, which is super handy and what we want. So we'll get your library's items in their hands, and then if it's checked out and there's no local holdings, it'll look for the record with the lowest hold ratio. And you can always tell what's going to get a hold placed on it by looking at this. It's going to be this first one in the list, basically every single time. It dynamically sorts this list so that the record most likely to fill your hold will be right at the top there. So that's how Aspen kind of uses its logic to place a hold. So let's look at what this will look like in action in workflows. So I'm going to, and actually I'm already logged in, I believe. I am not logged in. Okay. Instead of logging in with a taskbar code, what I'm going to do here is log in with my staff account. We're getting some coughing. If you don't mind muting yourself if you're not speaking, that just may help everyone here. All right, so I am logged in with my staff account. I am going to use the handy dandy masquerade mode. Which some of you I know are already using to place holds. If you're not, we definitely recommend it. Kind of just makes hold a little easier to place for patrons when you're at the desk. So I'm going to go back to my Pride and Prejudice here. Hopefully nobody fills this as I'm talking to you, which is always a concern. And I'm going to place this for pickup at the Downers Grove Public Library. I did use an Oak Brook card, partly just so you can see what that looks like. We do advise it's always best to place holds. It's best for patrons to place their holds at their home library's catalog, just because that's going to do that, kind of making sure they're getting their getting like new items and that kind of thing faster usually. But I'll submit this request. So I've placed this hold. And when I go to view my holds here, something that's sort of nice is the hold is placed at the group level, but the hold is placed on a specific record. So I can actually click into this and see the information. This is a record for a specific item. You can tell because you can see the ISBNs here. So you know which one that's getting placed on through Aspen. And then here, I was already testing with this user. I'm going to display them again here. So here I've got their hold. Here's a hold I just placed. And I'm going to display this item. And this is an Alsip Marionette Park item. So I get questions often like, well, Aspen didn't, this was placed at my library, Downers Grove in this instance. Why is it placing a hold on an Alsip item? Why isn't it placing a hold on my item? Well, the answer is that this is a title level hold, so it's not placed on an item. And then Symphony just kind of randomly picks an item ID to just tack on as kind of a placeholder so that it can place that hold. But it is a title level hold. And any library that kind of runs their pick list and that pops up, if Downers Grove runs their on-shelf report, it's gonna pop up for them. So just keep in mind that's really just a placeholder. Aspen isn't like placing a hold. This is actually just Symphony placing, just kind of picking an item as a placeholder. And when you look at the hold information, you'll see the pickup library. The placed at library is the catalog you were on, which is handy to know. And then there's a comment. In this case, as a staff person, I used masquerade mode to place that hold. And this allows us in Blue Cloud Analytics to track holds that were placed by patrons and holds that were placed by staff through masquerade mode. It just gives us kind of some stats on where the holds are getting placed. So are there any questions about holds and Aspen and grouped records and all that good stuff? Anyone? So quiet.
So there's a question in the chat that Tara, that's asking if you can explain what masquerade mode is.
Yes, masquerade mode is wonderful, and I 100% recommend. This is like a huge request before we moved to Aspen. Like staff would just specifically ask for this function. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could just place hold through the catalog? And that is what masquerade mode does. And I feel like when I check my stats, I'm like, why isn't everyone using it? And I think maybe some folks just don't know, which is great. I'm glad to share it here. So it is a function that's available in Aspen when you're logged in, as with any Aspen administration login. We have recommended all libraries distribute the login that provides access to masquerade mode to all staff or anyone that would be possibly at any time placing a hold. And when you do that, you see like in your normal account menu here, I've got kind of all the regular options, but I've also got masquerade as an option. And when I use that, and I can just put in a patron's barcode. This is a test barcode in this case. And the name looks kind of silly because I think this is like OBD Aspen test for an Oakbrook test card. But it is but yeah, you'll see you're acting as this patron, and then you can basically see everything but their checkout history. So you can see what they've got checked out, and this is actually great because I want to make sure I cancel these holds here so I can see what they've got on hold. And then I want to make sure these test holds here don't get filled, so I am just going to go ahead and cancel them. And I'm just canceling those for this patron. If they had fines, I could look at their fines. I could help them, say they want to link an account. I could go to their linked accounts and help them out with that. So basically, it lets you use the catalog just like a patron. And the big perk is then you can place holds for them. Any other questions? All right. Well, I am going to stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Tara. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. And obviously, again, if you have questions, help@swanlibraries.net. But I hope that clears up some questions y'all might have had.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next up this morning is Helen. So, Helen.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes.
I don't have a visual aid, so Crystal, if you or whoever's driving, if they want to pull up the agenda again.
Yeah. It says to share, it says ask the organizer to make me a presenter. So I have to be made a presenter again.
I don't think I'm a presenter. But anyway, you can just use your imagination. I just wanted to briefly give you all a heads up that we are moving forward with renaming the status that appears in workflows when a patron is referred to unique management for material recovery service. Currently, that status is collection, which is scary and wildly inaccurate. Patrons haven't been credit reported for years, and Unique isn't a collection agency. So we looked at the bill reason that is charged when the patron is picked up, and that's referral. So being limited to 10 characters as we were for the user status, we decided on referred. So toward the end of the summer, you will likely start seeing users with a referred status in workflows, and this means they've been referred to Unique for follow-up to settle their debt or return those outstanding materials. It will behave the same way as collection status did. You'll need to zero out the balance to reset the status. It's just more accurate and a gentler term and a better match to the gentle nudge that Unique employs. I don't have a firm date on when that switch will take place, but I wanted to start spreading the word now amongst the CERC folks, because you guys are going to be the ones to see it. So that's something to look forward to towards the end of the summer. Does anybody have any questions about that switch? Thank you, Jerry. Okay, well then that's all I've got for you today. Did I kill the meeting? Peggy?
I'm not sure.
Here I am.
Hi.
I'm back.
Okay.
All right. Moving.
I had a question. No, Claudia, the patrons who are already in referred are already in collection. No, they're not. That's not going to go back and change that. It's only the placements going forward are going to be referred. Good question.
Okay. Any other questions for Helen? Okay. Helen, thank you so much. And of course, if anyone has any questions about patron accounts, they can certainly send in a ticket to Helen. All right. Moving on with the agenda. It was asked if during summer reading, when patrons are, many patrons are coming in and, renewing their library card accounts or, updating their accounts, are libraries still encountering issues related to NOCA? And it was asked, what steps are being taken at service desks to smoothly handle these transactions and these any issues that might be coming up related to NOCA. Has anybody noticed an uptick? We just taking a step back, we just had a question in the chat regarding from Sarah about Unique, and she's asking, we don't use Unique, are users still being charged as a referral, and if so, why? And I'm thinking I'm going to defer that question to Helen.
Sarah, if you don't use Unique, your patrons are not being picked up by those reports. Each of those reports is configured individually for the libraries that have opted into that service. So if you're not a unique client, your patrons aren't being referred to unique.
Does that help you, Sarah? I'm kind of watching the chat to see if she, or Sarah, you can feel free to, Sarah says, I'll send a ticket. And then Laura is asking, can they be if they have lost other libraries' materials?
No, the reports run on patron library. So if you are not a library that refers your patrons, your patrons will not be picked up by collections, even if they have material from other libraries.
And Laura said, thanks. Okay. Any other questions about unique or patron accounts before we let Helen off the hook? I'm watching the chat just to make sure we address anybody's questions or anybody's concerns. Okay. All right. So moving on to NOCA, Julie is saying, how basic of an answer is the person looking for with regard to the NOCA question? I guess what the person is kind of just asking is more, they're just curious how often other libraries are still encountering issues with NOCA. Is it still an issue in a lot of libraries? Have most libraries smoothed these issues out by now? I think that's what this person was trying to kind of drill down to. Do most libraries feel that they've worked these issues out with their patrons at this point, or does it continue to be an ongoing problem at libraries that they're encountering patrons that they have to address the change of address? I think that was really what this person was kind of seeking. Just to kind of get a sense of what other libraries are encountering. Okay, so Julie, you're still encountering issues. And Jane says we encounter this occasionally. Okay, and Teresa's saying, yes, we are still getting a few from other libraries who are flagged but not completed, blocked, etc. Okay, so Teresa, what do you mean by who but not completed, blocked, etc.? Can you expand on that, Teresa? And feel free to unmute yourself and kind of share if you're able to.
So we get a few that come through from other libraries that are being flagged, and they're still perfectly okay in the system. Like the flag is there, but they're not blocked or in any way other, like stopped from borrowing. And we have had one unfortunate incident where the other library had told them, well, your card hasn't expired, so you can keep on using it. And they were now living in our unincorporated area, and so it was a bit delicate and problematic.
Yeah, that is an issue. Yeah, that is a problematic issue. Are most libraries finding, okay, and Julie's saying, is it the practice at libraries to overwrite the existing accounts? Do other libraries want to respond to Julie's question? Jerry's saying yes. And Mary's saying yes. Sandy's saying yes, yes. Teresa's saying we overwrite if they have moved to our area. So Julie's seeming that, yeah, pretty consistent from the responses we're getting, that it's pretty consistent that they do. So does that help you, Julie? And Sarah's saying we never override another library's block. But I think, Sarah, what Julie's saying is that, if I understand Julie's question correctly, she's saying that when somebody moves, you're modifying the account. Correct, Julie? And Jane's saying we don't override the blocks. When patrons come to our district, we update their current record. And that's what I'm understanding Julie to be asking. And Rebecca's...
Can I jump in?
Yeah, absolutely, Julie.
I'm only asking because I was receiving requests to delete my accounts because the patrons have moved and received a new card. So I just wanted to make sure that's not the practice we should be displaying.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, Julie?
So I received requests to delete my accounts after patrons have gotten a new card at their new location. And I wanted to make sure we are still supposed to overwrite accounts when patrons move to a new service area.
I agree with you, and I think Crystal can weigh in on that, but my understanding is you're supposed to modify the account and
Good.
bring it up to date to the new address.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I am here, Peggy. I'm just looking things up because I know the NCOA, that stuff has changed a couple of times. So give me a minute. I'm going to talk with Vicky real quick, and then I'll give you guys a for sure answer. I do believe you and Peggy, you and Julie are correct. But just give me 1 minute, okay?
Okay, great. And
I
then,
can go ahead and weigh in if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna chat you. You're here.
I have it turned off because I was presenting, so I wouldn't have gotten it.
Okay.
The NCOA, what has changed with that is we are not automatically updating everybody to bad address status. If libraries have asked us to do that, we have. There are some libraries who have asked us to remove any records where their patron has moved out of their service area and their status is okay. And I think that that's probably the cleanest way of doing things. So if the patron were to come to your library and use that card, or attempt to use the card, it would say that the patron is not in the database. And then the patron would have to just apply for a new card at their new service area. So if they're continuing to come to your library because they were your patron, they would have to show their proof of residence again. So we definitely do recommend that if the record has been left in Symphony, that the new library does use that old record and update it. And just do it the same way that you would any re-registration when someone moves to your service area, and ask for that proof of residence, and if there are any issues with the record, such as lost items or things like that, just work through it the same way that you would if it didn't have the NCOA flag in the record. So I hope that helps.
That's a big help. Thank you. Thank you very much. There is a comment in the chat that says, from Rebecca, that says there are some patrons who will always be flagged by NOCA, because, their address is kind of a funky address. Like she has a patron who lives above a bar and it's not recognized by the U.S. Postal Service. So she just puts a note on the account. So yeah, there's always unique situations that occur. So any other comment? So have we addressed everybody's concerns regarding this? I'm looking at the chat, and I think we've pretty much clarified everything regarding this topic, but I just don't want to leave. Okay, Sarah has a comment. It's better to delete your newly added account and start over because of reading history. Okay. So I think we've addressed all the comments regarding NCOA. Is there anything else that people want to chime in regarding this topic before we move on? I'm kind of watching. Okay. Julie says, I don't understand that last comment. Sarah, are you able to unmute yourself and kind of share what, expand on your comment?
Yeah, good morning. I was really referring back to the earlier statement made about calling another library and asking them to remove an existing account when in fact you've made a mistake. You've overlooked the fact that that user had an existing account. I don't even understand why you would not recognize that as an error that needs to be fixed on your end. The account existed for some reason for searching on previous user account. You may have failed to notice that it was there. And if there has been no activity on the new account that you're creating in that moment, rather than calling another library and saying, hey, get rid of your account because we're issuing a new card, I don't really feel that that is fair to, well, the reader's history or the user's reading history would inevitably be lost in making a decision to eliminate an existing record that they may have had for years. So I'm really not certain why we would ever ask another library to remove or to delete an account when the account did exist and there was some error on behalf of the now library in failing to recognize it when they issued their card.
Mm-hmm. Your point is very well taken, and I'm glad you shared your thoughts with us, because that makes excellent sense, and it's really advocating for the patron. And I think it really emphasizes how important it is to make sure that our staff understands that they have to do a thorough patron search before creating a new record. So
exactly. Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, in most libraries, I know with us, I have a person assigned that does all of the refinement once we have accounts created. We do it at the end of the month. Some libraries are larger. They may do it daily because they may have larger volume of new accounts. But that's the whole point, is to identify where a clerk may have missed a search or something like that. And you're right. It is about the training, making certain that clerks are, I always say to my clerk or to the clerks in our department, you know what, when a person comes in to get a new card, they don't know how long the process really is. If you've got to pick around in that record to look for other matches, take your time. They don't know that that's not natural and normal, and it really is normal. We do need to be careful about identifying those previous accounts for various reasons.
Yeah, I think these are some excellent points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And then there's some other comments that, sometimes, you do get in a situation where the patron has already walked away with their new card, and, you're kind of in a pickle. And, you do have a situation where, you have to call a library and work that out because the patron has two accounts, and another library is chiming in that they, if the patron has already checked out items or placed holds on that new account, they might be in a difficult situation and have to, ask a former library to delete an account. And Julie's saying she doesn't agree with that. So Julie, what are you thinking about that? You want to kind of share what kind of expand on that? Which part aren't you agreeing with?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse.
Oh, that's okay.
I guess I don't agree with saying once the patron's walked away, you can't do anything about it. Obviously, if the patron walked away and it's still before they've checked out or placed holds, you can quickly redo the card, delete it, and then modify the old card. After they've checked out and or placed holds, you can delete everything and recheck it out later after you've modified the hold. I understand that's a big manual task, but I think it's a cleaner way to handle the situation than to just get rid of the old card. As Sarah made the point, the patron does have history attached to that old account, and it's in their best interest to do what we have to do after we've made a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and it's good to know that there's definitely some options. There's some options. There's some ways to fix it. And, one of the things I always say to my staff, if a mistake is made, there's ways I can fix that. I think you've offered up some very good solutions for this sort of situation. So this has been a great a great discussion. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to this topic before we move to another agenda item? Sarah's saying it doesn't happen often, but we need a best practice. And I would offer up, and others can, share their opinion, but I think, from what I'm seeing during this discussion, definitely it's always best to modify an existing record when a patron has moved. I think that's the conclusion we're all kind of moving toward in this discussion. And if you make a mistake and you're able to rectify it, it's better to use that existing record. Okay. Any other thoughts or any other comments on this? Anything else anybody wants to share? You can definitely unmute yourself and share your thoughts. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to quickly interject that
Sure.
are we agreeing to disagree here, or are we making a decision to allow it to kind of shape and form the parameters? I get a little concerned when we walk away from such broad brushstroke topics, knowing that we're each faced with the situation and we're going to be required to make some decision in that moment. And if there are no absolutes, then anything goes. And if anything goes, is that okay with everyone that's involved? These are the things that concern me when we're trying to make a decision on our, events like this that we encounter on a daily basis, although not at the same library, but we're all faced with the same set of issues working with our user accounts.
Okay, so I would, from my perspective, and I definitely think it's very important to hear other people's opinions. I think it's always best if you're a library that is now working with a patron who has moved to your service area, you want to modify an existing account. And I don't have, it's always been my understanding that has been a recommended best practice. And, please, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's always been my understanding that was the recommended best practice, that you are supposed to modify an existing record if someone moves into your service area. If a mistake occurs, which we all know, life isn't perfect, and a mistake, occurs, then I think people should make a best effort to retain that existing record, if they are able to. Does this all make sense to everyone? Because you want to retain that patron's reading history. And we don't want duplicate records in the database. That's certainly not good stewardship of the database. So I'm kind of looking at the chat here. Somebody's saying, outside of a mistake issue, does that mean we shouldn't ask SWAN to delete accounts with an okay status that have moved out of service area? No, I don't think that's what we're saying here.
Okay, I'm going to jump in real quick, Peggy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So Vicky's quoting some CERC policy in there. I think that's kind of encompasses some of this issues about multiple records, right? So if you have, they're prohibited in SWAN, and there are a few very specific instances in which you can have dual records, right? Just like custody and things like that. Okay, so we all kind of know that. I do think that this is a very sensitive, this is an issue that you might see. It isn't something that maybe is daily, So to create and bring this to Circ Advisory and then have a policy created around this specific issue, you could do that over and over and over with every tiny instance and nuance that you may face at the desk, which is never going to be all encompassing. So my suggestion here is that to keep that policy in mind with the 2 accounts, right? Not allowed, they're prohibited, and to do your due diligence in trying to rectify that. I know without merging records, that is, almost impossible. However, with along the lines of what Julie and others have said here, I think it is, if you have gone ahead and made this duplicate account, you've gone ahead and done that, you then go back and find it, that, it is in the patron's best interest to retain, and yours, if there are any, notes or anything like that that might help you, make decisions with various issues you might have with this patron in the future. Just making sure that you can check those items directly out on the card of the existing account, not checking them in. They might trap a hold, anything like that. Just automatically go into that existing account, move those items over, move those holds over, and then deleting your record. That would be the best thing to do for your patron. They have their reading history, they might be somebody who uses the catalog, online catalog, a lot and relies on that reading history, or is very just active. You don't know the situation or has, uses e-resources, and you don't want to break any of their links. You don't want to break any of their history. So then you can go ahead and remove your newly created record. That is it is just such a case by case instance that you're going to run into. So I think using your best judgment, trying to make sure you're retaining the integrity of the patron account is the best decision for everyone involved. Yes, it is more legwork for whoever is doing that process, the cleaning up of that. But again, mistakes happen, and we can do the best that we can do. That's all.
Thank you, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think one of the challenges always in library services and in circulation is that for any rule or any procedure or for any policy, there's always unique situations. And there's always such a strong mission to serve our patrons well and to do what's in the best interest of the patron. And there's seems to be very few absolutes at the circulation desk because our patrons are unique and their situations are unique. And the overarching effort to give them the best service sometimes calls us to be creative and, sometimes we have, as much as we want to be consistent in our processes and our procedures, sometimes we are confronted with very unique situations. So it's a tough job we do. And, we sometimes are up against a lot of challenges. So But I think this is a wonderful discussion, and hopefully, we can continue to have some more discussions about topics like this. On a related library card topic, it was asked if libraries are starting to react to the passing of Public Act 102843, which allows library boards to provide library cards at no cost to unserved residents under 18 years of age. This is very new. Governor Pritzker just signed this recently, and I know that it was asked, are any libraries reaching out to patrons who might benefit from this new legislation? So is anybody doing anything to kind of reach out to patrons in unincorporated areas who are under the age of 18 and might benefit from this newly enacted legislation? Julie is saying, is this newer than the free cards for kids? So what this is so cards for kids was for kids who met certain criteria in terms of like the free the school lunch program. This is new legislation that says any minor, anyone under the age of 18 who lives in an unincorporated area is eligible for a library card if your library board determines that they are going to offer this. So this is very, very new. This was just signed literally within the last couple of weeks, I believe, by Governor Pritzker. So I'm just wondering if any libraries, has anybody jumped on this? Are they, since it's summertime, and reached out to populations in unincorporated areas to inform their patrons of this? Okay, I'm kind of watching the chat. And I see some links. Thank you very much for putting some links. Laura's asking, we charge for unincorporated areas. Does our board have to agree to give free cards? Okay, so this is how I understand it. These cards, your board would have to pass this, but it would only be for residents under the age of 18. Yes, and Vicki is correct. Like there was any chance Vicki could be wrong. The big difference between this act and the cards for kids is that library boards need to opt in to do this. So your board would have to opt in. I believe they would have to vote. They would have to vote, pass a vote that they would opt in to do this. So I'm just going to I guess then we'll kind of put this on everybody's radar. And Laura's saying, so a board can decline it if they want to? Yes, Laura, they could. Well, okay, so Debbie, this would just be for minors. It wouldn't be for adults. Okay, and Debbie's saying we also have a large non-resident population. We rely on that income. I would be surprised if our board opted in. And Laura's saying thanks, and Julie's saying thank you for bringing this up. Okay.
Peggy,
Yeah.
I will weigh in via mic as well.
Okay.
The other non-residents that are other non-resident cards that are listed on that page that I gave you, there are certain ones that it is a state law that you would have to issue those cards with no fee, and that would be in the case of Cards for Kids, where they do qualify for that school lunch program, and the family does need to bring in the proof that they do qualify for that. But also the veterans cards, and I think
Right. Well, there's well, see, now Vicky, I'm not exactly sure because I think like I think this supersedes like this new public act like supersedes the previous Cards for Kids.
I'd have to double check on that. I was not under the impression that it did.
Well, because it's saying that because the new public act is saying, okay, I see what you're saying. So like if your board doesn't enact, yeah, then anybody that, yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, so
right.
So we may want to check. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Exactly. Okay, so if your cards, yeah. So if your library board chooses not to enact free library cards for all minors in an unincorporated area, they would still be bound by Cards for Kids. Yes, right. I see what you're saying. Exactly.
And don't forget the veterans also.
Yes.
Okay.
That's very important. Yeah. And Teresa's saying it's an addition, not a replacement for Cards for Kids. Teresa, you're exactly right. And Rebecca's saying Cards for Kids is only for children who qualify for the free reduced lunch program who live in an unincorporated area. Yes, Rebecca, you're correct. Got it. All right. Wonderful. And Julie's saying, how would you even begin to contact patrons? Julie, what some libraries are doing is they're working with the schools. I know that Helen Plum Library was doing a really neat thing where they were working with their schools, and they actually were giving the schools like these postcards that the school could then give to students who qualified for Cards for Kids, and the students could actually bring the postcard to the library services desk, to the circulation desk to get their library card. And it was a way to kind of take away any stigma or embarrassment. So it was a really neat way that they were doing it. And Sarah's asking, how do you protect against abusive use? That is something that could come up at your service desk. So I hope this information is helpful to people. Julie's asking what kind of abuse. And Jerry's saying hard to do on any level of borrower.
Hi, I'm going to interrupt once more just to answer those concerns. That ran through my own head as I was posting that. What I'm referring to is the intent here is to make library services available for the minor. Mm-hmm. And if for some reason the adult in that unincorporated area is not willing to obtain a family card or maybe can't afford it, how would you be able to ensure that the intended use takes place? And yes, you're right, that's difficult on any level of a borrower, but I think this goes slightly in a different direction because we are agreeing to establish something that would absolutely be different from any other existing structure where the issuance of cards is concerned. So this becomes more of something, do we try to manage it, or do we just simply go into it with the blindfolders on and say, we've agreed to make this happen for the kids' sake, and whatever happens, happens, or, try to get the leverage after the fact. It's kind of awkward because once you've jumped off the cliff, you're going to go down. But maybe there's a parachute, maybe there's some current that'll take you up again, where you'll be able to say, okay, here's what we've discovered is going to need more monitoring and more management, and maybe it'll just be pulled together a little bit at a time along the way because it's new. And our board has not, I don't even know that they are aware of it or have considered it, but those are the concerns that I have. And, maybe they're just concerns in my head and maybe they won't pose the problems. Maybe it'll just simply be one of those wonderful things that we can do as libraries, along with all of the other wonderful things that we already do.
Thank you, Sarah. Helen has put a link for the East Baton Rouge Parish Library that has ideas for connecting with students. So that definitely is worthwhile to check out. So I think that's a great thing to look at. And then Teresa's saying it's difficult to manage. There's no way to determine the adult book being taken out by the under 18 member isn't for their use. We have encountered this sort of issue with our business cards. It's hard to police why they're taking any item out. And Vicky's saying, as with any non-resident card, the parent is still responsible for any loss on the record.
Are they?
And Helen's saying unique material recovery service can help with those abuse situations. So those are some other things to think about. Okay, anybody else want to share some comments? Share some thoughts? You definitely are welcome to unmute yourself and kind of have a discussion on this. Okay, well, hopefully this is something, that you can have some further discussions at your library about. And, certainly, at further, upcoming meetings, it's something we can, discuss further as we start to all explore what this will mean at our libraries. It was asked, I know this topic has come up before at our user group meetings, but September is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. And we always have members of our circulation community that are looking for unique ideas to celebrate National Library Card Sign-Up Month. And, some are just curious, is there anybody that has a unique idea planned for September? Does anybody have anything special that they'll be doing this upcoming September to celebrate National Library Card Sign-Up Month? Okay, I'm looking at the chat and I'm not really seeing any comments on this. Okay, Laura's saying we are having an after-hours scavenger hunt in the library with prizes, food, etc. But you have to have your Flossmore card to sign up. Oh, that sounds like fun. Can people? Oh, you have to have a Flossmore card. Otherwise, I might come. And Rebecca's saying we're going to try signing people up for their online cards at the farmers market, and we've never done that before. That sounds like a great idea, Rebecca. I really like that. I definitely might steal that for some events that our library might be going to this summer. So that's awesome. Can definitely promote all those e-resources that way. It's a great way to, start some talking points. Anybody else? Okay. Maybe I'll post this one on our community forums on the SWAN website, and that way as the summer as the summer goes on, if anybody has a neat idea for library card sign up month, they can share their ideas there, and we can have a little idea exchange. Lastly, I noticed on the forums that someone posted, oh, Jerry, you like that idea? Okay, thanks, good. I'm glad you like that. I also noticed on the forums that someone was asking about how libraries circulate their AV materials. And I thought that I would add that last agenda item to today's meeting, just in case anyone wanted to share their methodology for circulating AV materials. I know there were a few responses, that some libraries do keep certain collections behind the desk. Some libraries keep everything out on the floor. So if anybody has something that they'd like to share for the person who posted that comment on the community forums, I'm sure it would be greatly appreciated. I know at Eisenhower, everything we have is out on the floor in security cases. Teresa's saying all of her materials are out on the floor, unlocked, and theft hasn't been a big issue. And Sarah's saying that locked cases are the best investment we ever made and streamlined their process. And Vicki put a link to the forum. Thank you, Vicki. And Laura's saying we have everything on the floor except for video games, hotspots, and board games. And Jane says new movies and all video games are kept behind the counter. So thank you very much for sharing that information for the person who posted that query. I'm sure they always appreciate hearing what other libraries are doing. Okay. All right. Jerry's saying she has everything on the floor without security except video games and hotspots. Wonderful. This is all great information. It always helps to know what other libraries are doing. All right, that's about it for our agenda today, unless anyone else has something they would like to ask before we adjourn. Okay, Rebecca has a general question about non-resident cards. Should the patron obtain a card at the library building closest to their house or the library district area closest to their house? It's not always the same. Okay, would anybody like to answer Rebecca's question? She says, I've been getting some very complicated questions about this recently. Swan staff, do you want to chime in and answer Rebecca, or would?
I'm not sure. I think there's a actual written law somewhere. Okay, Helen's digging. Thanks,
Yeah.
Helen. Here we go. I knew Vicky would know this, and Helen would know this better than I.
It's the public library closest to the person's principal residence. It's toward the bottom of the quote that I put in there. So I'm not sure if you have to count actual blocks or how you right. And Julie, I agree. I think it used to be that, but I think they updated it. It did used to be the closest school district, but I pulled that straight from the act that Helen gave us the link for. So that's from Public Act 102-0843.
So Rebecca's saying, so that interpretation would be the library building closest to their house, even if the district area snakes around. And Debbie Sheehan saying, there is also something about commonality of interest. Debbie, I'm going to ask you, what is commonality of interest? I think Debbie's responding, I think if one library has something that another does not.
I think that may be why they put the act into effect so that patrons don't shop around for the best library.
Laura's saying, may a non-resident shop around for the least expensive card? No. Okay, a non-resident shall apply for a non-resident card at the closest public library. The factor for determining the closest public library shall be the residence of the non-residents. Non-residents shall apply at the participating public library in the school district in which the non-resident has his or her principal residence unless, due to the commonality of community interests, library services at another library that is physically closer may better serve the needs of the non-resident.
It looks like that one is even newer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Laura with the mic drop. I love that, Helen. Yeah.
Laura, is that from
Laura.
Rails? Can you give us the link for that? Is that from Rails? It looks like that's from an FAQ. And great job, Laura.
That is super. Let's put put it in there.
Thanks, Laura. And you too, Debbie. You were right. Commonality of interests.
Yeah. Wow. Rebecca's saying, thank you, Laura, for the clarification. The school district is an easier way to determine. We have a lot of gray areas between us, Thomas Ford, Indian Prairie, etc. All right. So, Rebecca, does this help you? I'm hoping. This is some great information. Laura, you are welcome. It comes up here a lot because our non-residents are so expensive. We have several towns that feed into our school districts, though. Rebecca, we have some non-residents who live in equidistant from 2 library buildings, which is a whole other can of worms. Yes, this is very helpful. Thanks. Okay, anything else before we adjourn today? Sarah says, thank you for another great sharing event. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, topic on lockers. You're right. Did I miss that? You're right. Thank you, Vicki. Yes, very quickly before we adjourn, there was a question regarding library lockers. For those of you that have library lockers, now that things are a little more normalized and patron visits are kind of coming back, are you finding that your library lockers are still being utilized as much as they were during COVID, or has library locker usage dropped off? Okay, Sandy's saying patrons love them and use them all the time. Okay. That's great to know. I had a request, somebody, a library is thinking of getting library lockers, and they were wondering if it was still worth making that investment. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Sandy, for that feedback. And Julie's saying, does anyone have lockers at a remote location? Trying to remember, I thought there was somebody that had them like at a train station, but I can't remember. Yeah, Vicki, I thought there was a library that had them like at a train station, but I can't remember who that is.
Michael, do you remember which library has that?
No, I'm sorry, I don't off the top of my head.
I believe Stickney Forest View is looking at an external location outside of their library. I can't remember exactly where that was. But I believe they're divided by train tracks, so one of the locations was going to be on the other side of the train tracks.
Yes, that is who it was. I don't. Do they have them implemented, Tara? Do you remember, or were they just looking at it?
As far as I remember, I don't believe that they are live yet, but I think they were in the process of installing the lockers in the new location last I checked. But they're live at their library, but not in the kind of crosstown location.
Okay.
Okay, and Vicky has put a link in to the chat.
Sorry, I forgot to say that is from the Swan Support sites about pseudo libraries with drive-ups and lockers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else before we adjourn for the day? No? All right, well, thank you all for sharing your morning with us today. I hope everyone leaves the meeting today having learned something new or being inspired to try something new in your circulation department. I hope everyone has a wonderful Wednesday, and thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.